You surface from the underground at Piccadilly Circus.
Mind the gap.
Making your way through the glittering lights of London's West End, you take a turn down a quaint-looking street into the notorious neighborhood of Soho, and you arrive at our intimate cafe. Welcome to The Big Smoke, a live-recorded variety show podcast. My name is Kevin Bennett. I'll be your guide through this experience of comedy, conversation, and community. In this episode, you'll hear my conversation with Sarah Day, otherwise known as Mema the Cave Woman, an experimental archaeologist not only specializing in the Stone Age, but in many ways living it. You will then hear from Meg Hemmings. She's an Australian poet and baker here to grace our ears with her charming and delightful work. But first, it's time to play Stump the Room. Round one is called Stump the Room. These are the rules. With your team, you're going to search for the most difficult crossword puzzle clue that your table can solve, okay? But you think no one else in the room will be able to solve it. So you're going to try to stump the room. Search for the clue that your team knows the answer to, but you think no one else will. Who thinks they've got one that will stump the room? Yuna, can you please give us your name and the newspaper?
I'm Yuna. The newspaper is what, I?
Oh, the I.
I?
Yeah. And what is your crossword puzzle clue?
Clue, it's residue and it's 5 alphabets.
5 letters, and it is residue. Have you been stumped? You'll find the answer at the end of the episode. Today's episode is called Stone-Aged Wisdom. Now, what does that mean to you?
Stone Age wisdom. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is maybe the wisdom isn't there with people right now, that maybe we need to look back in history and prehistory and human history to find wisdom that we might not have right now, given the current political climate.
You kind of think of Stonehenge, but owls. I'm not sure why owls, but owls aren't actually all that clever, but they just evoke something in our minds, in our understanding of some deep wisdom that we possibly once had and seem to have lost, and we're always searching for, always through history, looking for this knowledge we think we had. They convey the impression of wisdom, and that's enough, because they just look so beautiful, don't they? They look so, especially in flight.
So when you say Stonehenge wisdom, it takes you back to the ways of people dealing with life, and then once you know how they dealt with life, you will compare it with the new life, and once you compare it, you might as well find a new way of life, find a way to deal with things from that perspective. Or maybe if you compare it, that wasn't good, you appreciate the modern life more.
I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little bit tipsy, so I just think about Fred Flintstone. I kind of think of nails.
Mema, aka Sarah Day, is a bushcraft instructor, experimental archaeologist, and ancient technologist. Mema has been interested in prehistory from a very young age, when a chance find of a fossil at age 5 led to a wider love of natural and human history. Today, she is the head cave woman for prehistoric experiences, providing educational workshops across the UK for schools and the public. Please welcome to the stage, Mema. So, thank you for being here.
I'm very happy to be here. It was a bit touch and go for a second as to whether I'd actually made it.
She canoed all the way here. Where are you from?
I'm a Suffolk girl.
Suffolk. So that's
Suffolk.
a long way
Yeah.
to legit. She didn't actually canoe.
No, I was
but
in Portsmouth actually earlier
today. How did you get here? What was the route of transit?
It was attempted train, aborted train, lift from colleague, more train, run. It was quite a thing. It was quite a thing.
So, I mean, we're going to hear all about Sarah and her work, and we might have some time for some questions as well. So if there's been stuff that you've been dying to know about the Stone Age, she's fascinating. I really enjoyed the last couple weeks studying and preparing for this and learning all about the wild adventures that you go on. It's really, really exciting. Just something to start us off, actually. I was just started reading this book by Yuval Noah Harari called Nexus. He wrote Sapiens and Homo Deus, which are really, really popular books. So I literally just started this because the front said Stone Age. And I thought, well, that's a good excuse to buy a giant book. And there was a quote from it that I couldn't believe. I really felt like connected to our theme today. Our title is Stone Aged Wisdom. We've been having conversations about what you can learn from the Stone Age. What's the point of even studying it, bringing it to schools, things like that. So I just wanted to start with a quote and then we'll go on. So this is from the prologue from the beginning of this book. Nobody disputes that humans today have a lot more information and power than in the Stone Age. But it is far from certain that we understand ourselves and our role in the universe much better. Why are we so good at accumulating more information and power, but far less successful at acquiring wisdom? So I thought that was an interesting, yes, I heard a silent ooh.
He does some really good quotes, does
Yes,
Yuval
a nice
Noah
little
Harari.
pull quote that I just discovered earlier this week. So let's take us back to the Stone Age. What was it like? Bring us into that world. I'd love to hear about the timeline. Anything you want to sort of talk about to introduce us to that world?
The Stone Age is a hell of a big topic. When people think about the Stone Age, they're very often thinking about, Ice Age and mammoths and people going around covered in skins and toting spears around. That's just a tiny part of the Stone Age. So you can look at the last 4 million years and call that whole thing the Stone Age. And a lot has changed. We go from scavenging apes on the plains of Africa to people building Stonehenge and discovering the first metals. So it's a huge range. But I would say the biggest difference is that if you want something, it's got to come from nature somehow. Either you find it ready-made in nature, you find a rock that you can hit something with or whatever, or you find the things to make the thing in nature. But there's no easy way out usually. And very often when people look back at the Stone Age, they say, oh, they had no technology, they weren't very advanced. If you have high technology like we have now, you have a very, very low skill level generally. Like, most of you, if I asked you to go and make a bow and hunt dinner with it, you'd be like, don't know. But someone who's grown up with very little technology, maybe not even a metal knife, their skill level has had to expand hugely. And we shouldn't underestimate how skilled they really were and how resourceful and how much like us, really.
Can you tell us a little bit about the timeline? Because I think it was in your blog, but there was something that I read and you told me about that's really interesting in terms of, I guess, the justification for why we study it, partly being just the timeline of human history.
So when we visit schools, we're mostly talking to 7 and 8 year olds. So we go about it in maybe a slightly different way. But basically, if you miss out the Stone Age and you're wanting to understand humans and our history and where we're going, maybe if you miss out the Stone Age, you've missed out kind of 99.9% of our history. So if you take the time that Homo sapiens has been existing on this planet, which is about 200,000 or 300,000 years, give or take, and you squished it into a year, I did some real maths to work this out. It was horrifying. Copper, which is the first metal to be used by humans, as far as we know, gets discovered on the 29th of December at 2 a.m. So our whole history is Stone Age. And we've really not had much chance to change since it ended, which is why we are the way we are.
And I have so many questions kind of about why we study it and what we can learn about it and how it can help us today. But before we get to that, you call yourself, you are an experimental archaeologist is one of the terms, or experiential archaeologist you talked about. Can you just tell us A, what that is, and B, kind of what's your story, how you got into it?
How I got into this is a fairly long and winding story. But basically, if you get a love of natural history and you add it to a childhood spent dressed in strange historical clothes, mostly as a Tudor, so reenacting and talking to the public and all that kind of thing, and you add in bushcraft and survival skills, you basically end up with what I do now. So that's the short version. An experimental archaeologist is someone who looks at something that's been found in the ground, and rather than making some kind of academic assumptions about it, because that was the problem. That's always been one of the problems, is that archaeologists and academics are not very often people who work with their hands or with tools. So they're finding these tools and going, oh yes, well, we think it's this, and it was made for this, and it was made like this.
And they all have voices like that. It's
Yeah,
true.
sorry, archaeologists. And someone tries it and goes, well, it doesn't work. So they wouldn't have done it that way because it doesn't work. So an experimental archaeologist will look at a theory about how something was made or why or whatever, and will test it in often quite a scientific way, although it always contains an element of playing with bones and antlers and stones and stuff. An experiential archaeologist, it does the same sort of thing, but in a less scientific manner. So it's not like we've devised an experiment to test which method of waterproofing a hide canoe works best, and we're going to test it in a water tank with instruments. No, we're going to make a boat and play in it and see what happens. And that can inform what experiments you might do in the future. So that's the difference.
Cross-section with science and the arts and storytelling, really,
Yeah,
in a way.
very much so. And there's a huge element of kind of the public interface of things, because it's one thing to look at some dead, cracked bit of pot in a museum, but if you see someone actually processing clay and you get your hands in there yourself and you get all muddy and then you help gather the firewood to fire the thing, it's a completely different animal.
What's your favorite part of it? What inspires you now? I mean, you've been doing it for how long?
In one form or another. Well, I've been running the schools, I've been doing the school stuff since 2016, 2017, something like that, which is as long as the children I saw today have been alive, which is frankly horrifying. But I've been interested in natural history and bushcraft since I was very small, really. I suppose it really started when I was sort of 7 or 8, and I found a Ray Mears book in a bookshop, and Mum had to drag me away from it, and she got it for me for Christmas, and that was the beginning of this whole thing, really.
And what inspires you about it now?
There's always more to learn. You can build on it anywhere in the world, and even in a town or a city. I mean, the school we were at today, I purloined a bit of one of their plants because you can make string from it.
What's purloined?
Nicked.
Oh, nicked. I've learned a new word.
Liberated it. Nautical term.
Freed it.
So it's that, but also they're beautiful crafts. They're tactile. The colours are just really harmonious and they weather beautifully. And in terms of working with the children, children are so transparent. And when they're having fun, when they're excited, when you've kind of lit that flame in one of them, you can see it. And that's just magic.
Quite literally lit that flame. Talk about that in a minute. I really want to get into, you brought some amazing stuff, but before we show some things and you can tell us about what you've made and what you brought, Sarah has gone on some amazing adventures as part of this journey. One of the most recent ones was you traveled most of, or a huge amount of the length of the Thames.
A huge amount of. We worked out it was about 217-ish.
217 kilometers of the Thames in a skin hide.
In 2 hide canoes, yeah.
Okay, I want you to tell us all about this, which was a year ago. But before you do, there's an article in the BBC Travel. If you look up the article, it's called The Women Traveling the Thames in Animal Skin Boats. And this is a quote from the beginning of it, which I just thought was hilarious. So, a man moored nearby poked his head out of his houseboat. "If you're gonna do it like the Flintstones," he called out, "you're gonna get wet." Over the howling wind, they shouted, "It's for science!" As they set off, the narrow Thames presented an obstacle course. They had to limbo under low branches, bushwhack through rushes and dangling foliage, heave the boats over submerged trees, and get wings slapped by an angry swan. So that's from the beginning of that article. Tell us about this trip. What did you expect? How was it different? What did you learn?
It was just incredible fun. It was crazy and wonderful and a lot of fun. Basically, I paddled the Thames with my mum in a plastic canoe, a modern one, during COVID, that strange time that we try not to think about. And the whole time I was thinking, this is great. It's a beautiful river, but it could be more. I could experience this in a different way.
You used modern canoes for that
We used
one.
plastic canoes and all modern kit. Very little kit, We didn't take tents or anything, but I still felt like I was being separated from the experience in a way. And I could just imagine how cool it would look having a hide canoe going down the Thames. And I love a big project. I love a big project that brings lots of things together. So I mentioned this idea to a friend and colleague of mine who is a real, proper experimental archaeologist. She's an expert in hide tanning technology. Her name is Professor Teresa Camper, and she was on season 8 of Alone, and she travels around the world teaching people to make buckskin and leather and stuff. She's fab. And I mentioned it to her, and she was like, "Can I come?" I was like, "Yeah." So this was all in a random car journey somewhere, and we didn't actually meet again until we turned up at Cricklade together to start the journey. So it was all sort of random messages to different time zones, and partly we just wanted to do it for fun because we could, because it was a mad thing to do. Partly it was a study for ourselves into, could we do it? Would the boats do it? Would it work? And also it informs her research and mine into what people were really capable of. So the main thing we were really interested in is that people reached Australia, we think, 50 to 70,000 years ago, and we don't know how they did it. They didn't swim, or it seems pretty unlikely that they swam. There wasn't a land bridge, so they had some kind of boat. They had rafts, or they had dugouts, but they didn't really have the tools for it back then. So could these boats do enough days on the water and enough distance to make a sea crossing of that sort of magnitude possible? And yeah, they could. But we also found out lots of other things, like how it's possible, whether it's possible to repair them on the fly, like how quickly could you build one, how much you can carry in them. You can carry a lot. I was really impressed. And like how many days on the water they can do before they start to literally rot under you. About 3, we reckoned, and then they really need to dry out. So they were ripe by the time we got to Richmond.
How many days was the whole journey?
9.
9 days.
9, and then we just ran out of time. Basically,
Yeah.
We were both kind of gutted because I desperately wanted that photo of us going past the London Eye.
Yeah.
But we'd had a headwind the whole way. Teresa had to go off and do a lecture tour in Denmark, I think, somewhere. So we had to abandon it at Isleworth. That's as far as we got.
There's a lovely quote that you wrote when you first put the canoe on the water, and it made me think about our connection to, or your connection and what you're learning through experimental archaeology to what we make with our hands, and kind of, we get on the train, we get in an Uber, all those things, and we have no connection to what is serving us in our lives. You say it was quite an emotional moment, the realization having made a thing that could take me on a journey. At that moment, it almost became a living being, an as yet unknown traveling companion. Which I thought was a lovely...
It was, the boat had taken, over, like various attempts, it wasn't just the one boat, but over various attempts, it had taken probably a year to build. Although actually knowing what I know now, I could probably do it in 2 weeks if someone was feeding me sandwiches. But it really did. As you paddle it, the frame flexes and creaks, and it almost, as you paddle, the eddy of water swirling under the boat makes the rawhide flex, and it feels like it's breathing. It's bizarre, and you can see the water through the boat. It's like paddling a stained glass window, and that pattern you get on the bottom of a swimming pool, that sort of marbling, I don't know what it's called. You could see that through the boat, and the shadows of dragonflies and stuff. And the wildlife didn't seem to notice us. We were just, it was absolutely magical. It really was.
What was the most difficult part?
Of making it, or?
Well, I guess the whole adventure, from making the canoe to the journey itself.
I would say that the hardest part of the whole thing really was just the fact that this is not the Stone Age. All of the problems we had, I think that's what surprised us most, really, is that the problems we had were not really to do with the boats and the fact that we were using rawhide and sticks. The problems were we had a time limit. We couldn't just go, the wind's bad today, let's go hunting. Because we had, Teresa had to be there, I had to be somewhere else. And the fact that we couldn't have fires, not strictly speaking. So we couldn't dry the boats out.
Officially, there
Officially,
were no fires. In the BBC
yes.
article, there were no fires.
If we'd been able to have fires, we could have dried the boats out easily overnight, and the boats would have done an extra 10 kilometres a day without problem. So there were lots of things like that were frustrating. And in fact, the worst day for me, I think, was quite near the beginning. They used to allow you to camp on the lock islands. So you've got the locks and there's like an island with the lock keeper's cottage and there's toilets, and you used to be able to camp on them. But unfortunately, owing to the actions of certain muppetous individuals who enjoyed vandalising the toilets and pooing everywhere, they've decided no camping at all. So we didn't know this. We got to the lock islands, having paddled all day in this wind and very, very tired and close to a sense of humour failure. And they went, sorry, you can't camp here. And we had to paddle another 8 kilometres, almost in the dark.
And what did you camp in?
We pulled the boats up onto the bank, tipped them on their sides, propped them up with a forked stick or two, and just slept under them. And luckily, apart from one night, we had no weather.
It's probably similar size to my flat in Soho, but what? So okay, this is such a fascinating. I recommend reading the article and looking into it. What's next? You were telling me that maybe there's another adventure on the horizon.
Actually, on the way here, I was having a conversation with the lady herself about when we're going to do the next one. We're really interested in doing one of the French rivers. You know, one of the rivers that has real Stone Age pedigree with. I mean, the Thames has Stone Age pedigree. There's Stone Age stuff all over the Thames. But we were thinking like the Dordogne or the Ardèche. And then maybe we could blag our way into being allowed into some of the caves, you know.
Would any of you canoe for 10 days straight, 11 days straight? No, Meg's like, forget it. By the way, did you meet one of our guests in a previous episode? It was a mudlark, and they're always hanging around the banks of the Thames. Did you run into any mudlarks on the way?
Didn't. Not as far as I know. I do follow quite a few of the mudlarks though. On social media. I love watching.
One of our previous episodes, we've got Sean Clark, and who specializes in trade tokens. But it's fascinating how far back some of those objects are.
Oh, it's insane.
And I thought some of them would have probably thought you were one of their finds, grab you from the shore and bring you in and put you in a display. I love it. So before we get to some amazing objects that you're going to talk us through, I think this leads a little bit to a topic that I thought was really fascinating. In our conversation when we first started talking, Sarah recommended this book. I can't remember the author, but it's called ADHD, a Hunter in a Farmer's World, if you look it up. And I listened to about half of it on audiobook. And the premise behind it, it's about 20 years old, I think, but they've updated it.
It's been around a while, yeah.
The premise is the sort of gene of people who have ADHD potentially comes from a hunter gene, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah, sort of a more ancient makeup of brain, essentially.
Well, I thought it was really interesting because just a couple points, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts on it because you kind of brought this up to me. So people with ADHD are descendants of hunters, is what this book says. Tom Hartman, it's written literally in front of me. ADHD, A Hunter in a Farmer's World by Tom Hartman. So some of the kind of reasons that he talked about are, as a hunter, you would have to be constantly scanning, looking for food and threats. So there's distractibility. You have to make instant decisions and act without a moment's thought. So whether you're being chased or you're chasing, so there's impulsivity. Loving the high stimulation and high risk filled environment of the hunting field. And something was kind of beautiful was that it's just the only flaw in this is if they're living in a society of farmers, which we're living in now. And it connects to this idea that you talked about of, like, you know, the span of human history where we are now is such a small blip compared to the Stone Age. How do you connect to that and those ideas?
Well, it was, I'd been thinking something similar to that anyway, just trying to figure myself out, really. And then somebody told me about the book, and I thought it makes complete sense. And really, it came out of the noticing that within the circles of people where I find most of my friends, so reenacting and the sort of bushcraft, ancient technology side of things, I mean, I would guess, and this is, you know, what's the 90% of percentages are made up on the spot, but the autistic and ADHD quotient has got to be close to 80%. So there's something about these topics that seems to attract certain kinds of people. And I've always felt like a bit of I am an oddball. But with all of the information that's come out recently about kind of ADHD in women, because they used to just say that girls didn't get it. Obviously that's false. It just makes complete sense. And what I loved about that book is that it casts it all in quite a positive light. Whereas in schools it's seen as, it's a disability and it's something to be counteracted. The book looks into some ways to kind of harness it as a strength. That's not to say it doesn't bring a lot of challenges in this world. Obviously it does, but it was nice to see and very comforting to see it cast in such a positive and sort of empowering light, really.
Last question before we take a look at some of your lovely stuff, especially one particular item that we've spoken about, is I just wanted to ask you, the majority, I think we've either tipped into this or we're approaching this in the coming decades in terms of the majority of the population of the world living in urban environments, living in cities. And it just is becoming more and more and more as the years go on. And this was a topic that we had on another episode where we had an author who spoke about urban wildlife and how we preserve that because more and more people are living in urban spaces. So we need to foster wildlife for our own well-being and obviously for the wildlife itself. But what can we, in your opinion, the majority of humanity living in cities with modern technology, my phone's beeping, buzzing, I can hear the noise of the tube basically under my building. What do you think we can learn from the Stone Age, from your experiences that can make our lives better?
I think certainly in terms of the skills and the crafts, the sense of peace you get from something that takes time to learn and is satisfying when you have learned it. We've forgotten that. So many people don't have crafty hobbies, or they don't garden because they have no garden, and we need that. We're geared towards it. That's what our brains and our hands and our bodies are built for. So that's one thing. And also that probably the worst idea that humans have ever come up with. We've come up with a few really real good ones, but one of the worst ones, I think, is this idea that there's us and we're separate and we're sort of better, and then there's nature. And it's completely ridiculous. What we do to nature, we do to ourselves. There might be a delay. It might take a while to catch up with this, but if we screw with nature, we are screwing with ourselves. And there's I think it's a Sherlock Holmes quote, actually, but it's when man seeks to rise above nature, he invariably sinks below it, or something like that. In trying to be separate and different and above, we've forgotten what we are, and it's causing us problems. You look at the mental health crisis and the physical health crisis, and the fact that there aren't enough doctors who know how to use their hands to actually learn to do operations anymore. They don't have the fine motor skills anymore. So there's a lot of relevance.
Thank you for that. So I want to take a look at some of this stuff and you can share it with us. One of the alternate titles of tonight could have been Fallow Deer's Ball Sack. Okay? Because that's one of the items, believe it or not, that we're going to show you in a second. That's right. You heard that right.
It's the best thing in the world.
Maybe we need to start with that. Because we're all curious about this fallow deer's ball sack. Yeah, so grab some stuff and maybe hold it up. So these are all items that you've made, yes? Okay, so these are items that Sarah's made. Yeah. And we're going to show you a couple. And then in the interval, you can come and take a peek at them as well and ask Sarah any questions that you have about that.
So some of these things are replicas as close as I can make them to originals. This one is an actual original, and this is probably the coolest thing I will ever find.
Tell us what it is. Put it on the edge of the table.
I found this over lockdown, actually. I was walking a path through the woods where I rent a workshop, and it was just lying in the path. And I'll
just show it while you're describing it. Whoops.
And I'm always looking for flint artifacts, and I picked it up and I thought that's going to turn out to be nothing. It's got ice broken flint written all over it, and luckily I turned it over and I was like, oh my God, I actually found one. I've wanted to find a Paleolithic hand axe or any real Stone Age tool, really, since I knew they were a thing, since I was 5 or 6. And it was just lying there. It was like it had been put there. I actually looked around for the cameras. I thought someone was pranking me.
Ray Mears is hiding in the corner.
Well, it was bizarre. And the thing for me that I love is it's got a mistake on it. There's a sort of lump on it here that when you're knapping flint, that kind of thing where the flake breaks off and forms a step, it is so annoying. And what I love is that you can follow somebody's thought process. So this is 500,000 years old. And you can see where someone went, oh, bollocks, and then tried to attack it from a different angle, and that didn't work. And they tried from here, and it didn't work. And then eventually they've gone, you know what? It's getting too small now. We'll just use it as it is, and then we'll get rid of it. And in lots of ways, it tells more of a story than if it was perfect. So
I love that.
if the kids are really well behaved, I let them hold it.
If you're well behaved, you might be able to hold it.
I mean, this is the famous fallow deer's ballsack. One thing that I seem to have become known for is scooping up roadkill animals and making use of them. And originally it started as a way of getting the things that I needed, things that you can't get from butchers. You know, I needed stomachs and bladders and heart sacs, the pericardia, and eyeballs and all sorts of stuff. And now I do it partly because I still need those bits, but it's also free meat. And the ferrets eat it as well. But this bag is my favourite thing. I love to throw it at teaching assistants and get them to guess what it is, and the dawning horror.
So
as they realise.
What's the top part of it then?
There's a mixture of leather. It's there's a bit of salmon skin here.
I just have to say, we were having a conversation earlier in the week about the things she was going to bring and show. And we talked about, we were throwing around lots of different things. And just to have the conversation turn to fallow deer ballsack, I thought, I love this. What am I doing with my life?
Apparently,
I love it. It's
amazing. The root of the Old English word for purse. The Old English word for purse is the same as the Old English word for a ballsack.
Interesting.
Because they are bag shaped. It's perfect. Why not? So, I mean, for me, I love making use of something that nature has put there. I've got a squirrel bag here, which this was a roadkill the other day, and I'm going to use it to hold catapult balls to hunt more squirrels. So there's like a circularity to it, which pleases me. So it's all sorts of fun.
I love it.
And then I've got it might just make a horrible... I'm going to turn away from the mic a bit so I don't give anyone feedback deafness. Oh, thank you very much.
Round of applause. And what is that made of?
This is a swan's wing bone. And in fact, you mentioned, are we going to do anything shamanic today? Not really, but finding this bone was quite a good story because it was during the middle of a bird flu outbreak, and I'd been trying to get hold of a swan bone, and of course, ringing around swan sanctuaries and saying, if you get one that kicks the bucket, can I please? And they're used to weird calls like that from people who make arrows and want the feathers and he said, sorry, but no, try back in 6 months. And then I was out in my canoe and a barn owl flew over. And I thought, oh, wow, they're my favourite thing. I've got a necklace on with an owl on. And I followed it. I got up on the bank and I was watching it. And then I spotted this white thing in the grass. And it was a wing. It was just a whole swan's wing with some little fox teeth marks in the end.
Wow.
So I think a fox had tried to drag this swan along and gone, these wings are really irritating, and just chewed them off. Dumped them, and I found the other one 5 minutes later. So my owl led me to if I was being a complete hippie about it, which
my gosh,
I am a little bit.
Sorry, last question, because this is something I want the audience to do is I call this parish notices, but that's just my name for it, which is this whole event is about community and connection, right? Different ways of connecting with people. So I ask my guests, in the coming week, what is a way that you're connecting, finding community or connection? This could be anything from you're going to a birthday party, you're taking your dog for a walk, you're babysitting your friend's turtle, whatever. How are you finding connection and community in the coming week?
Something I'm going to be doing is I've just moved house and I have more apple trees than I know what to do with. There's apples everywhere. I'm having to compost them. I'm going to put a box of them out the front and try and palm some off on passers-by.
I love that.
And maybe I'll get to know some of my neighbours in the process.
I love that.
We'll see.
Brilliant. One more time for Sarah. Mema.
Thank you very much.
It's time to move on to a new segment called Hat Tricks. Here we go. 3 questions, 2 truths, and 1 lie. So we're going to bring up 3 contestants, each representing a different hat or a different life story. Okay? So I'm going to bring up, let's see, we've got Meg is going to come up. Give Meg a big round of applause. And we've got Ahmed. Ahmed, come on up. Come on up. Come on up. All 3 of you coming together. Give Ahmed a round of applause. And I think Ali is going to come up. Stand on the stage. Stand on the stage. So, how this game is going to work is these are like little micro interviews, right? So there we go. This show is all about connection, community. We want to find out a little bit of who our audience is, where are they from, the wonderful fabric of central London here. So I'm going to start actually with Ahmed. So we're going to get to know them a little bit with a skill testing question. So my first question for you, and you'll get you to speak into the mic. If you were a hat, what type would you be and why?
Oh, wow. That's okay. If I was a hat, I would be Tulip. Do you know what Tulip? It's a Fedora sibling, the MJ, the Michael Jackson one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that one. So you can feel comfortable and do stuff, that.
Why would you be that kind of a hat?
Because fits everywhere, and I can fit everywhere.
I love it.
Yeah.
Give him a round of applause. Yay. Okay, question number 2 is going to be Meg. Meg, come to the front. Everybody give Meg a round of applause. You're gonna hear from Meg a little bit more in a minute. But Meg, if you were part of a Stone Age tribe, what role do you think you'd take on and why?
Okay. I said a healer. So I am a writer, but I'm also a baker. And I said a healer because I would heal people with the magic of bread.
Give her
and that's a real thing, right?
I love that.
But also I think I'd just be chilling because don't you think being in the Stone Age would be kind of tiring?
I mean,
we'd be tired, right? We just need to chill.
I love it. Give her a round of applause. Okay, Ali. Ali's the only one that hasn't been pre-given this question. So I'm going to choose one that I think. Okay, so Ali, what is your guilty pleasure TV show or movie? Or let's just say what you consider a guilty pleasure that you're maybe a little embarrassed to admit you love. So I'll start because I always like to do it so you don't feel you're not the only one doing it. But I'll be honest, Gilmore Girls I think is brilliant. I watch it a lot. I'm not even guilty about that, but there's a part of me that people who haven't seen it, I feel like they're judging me a little bit. So that's going to be mine. So what is something that you love that you might be a little bit embarrassed, and speak into the mic for us?
Naked Attraction.
Give him a round of applause. Ooh, okay. Now it is time for part 2. So I'm going to get Ahmed back up into the mic. So what we're going to do here, and I'm going to need you guys' help in the audience here, is they've all been instructed to tell us 2 truths and a lie. So they're going to present 3 facts about themselves. I'm going to guess. Now, if you know this person really well, don't tell us. But I'm going to guess. If they manage to trick us, they're going to win one of these fantastic hats over here on this side. I'm going to tell you all about our sponsor for this segment, Hatopia, in a minute. So 2 truths and a lie, and I'm going to guess which one I think is the lie. So here we go.
Cool. A semi-pro footballer.
Semi-pro footballer.
Fashion designer.
Fashion designer. These are fancy.
Law student.
And a law student. Okay, say those again for us. You were a
semi-pro footballer.
Semi-pro footballer. Me too. Okay.
Fashion designer.
Fashion designer.
A law student.
And a law student. Semi-pro footballer, fashion designer, and law student. I think if you know Ahmed, don't reveal it.
But how many of you agree with me? Before this is my final answer. I think it's that he's a semi-pro footballer. I think that's the lie. Really? What do you think it is? No? What do you think it is? Law student? Okay. So my official guess, are you a semi-professional footballer?
That's your final.
That's my final.
I am.
You tricked me! Give him a round of applause! Ahmed has just done a...
Hat trick.
Okay, you're going to choose one of these hats. Let's just do the other two first, and then we'll have you guys fight to the death. Choose which one. Okay, excellent. Let's have Ali come up. Okay, 2 truths and a lie. One of them is the lie. Let's hear what they are.
All right, so I made a list. I can speak 5 languages.
5 languages.
I was a DJ.
A DJ at one point.
And I'm Persian.
Persian. So raise your hands if you... What was the first one?
So...
Sorry, I've forgotten already. Short-term
I
memory.
can speak 5 languages.
Okay, 5 languages. Raise your hand if you think that's the lie. 5 languages. One person. Okay, raise your hand if you think... What was the second one?
I was a DJ.
That he was a DJ. That's the lie. I think I agree. Raise your hand if you think... What was the last one?
I am Persian.
Oh, Persian. Okay, one person thinks that's a lie, but that's okay. Were you... I've forgotten it already, my brain. A DJ. Were you a DJ? That was it, right?
I was a DJ.
You were a DJ?
Psytrance.
You speak more than 5 languages.
I used to when you met me. Now I can do 5 fluent. I can do more than 5.
So what's the lie?
So I'm a Persian. I'm Iranian. Arab Iranian. Right?
You knew! I thought did not know. They both have tricked me. Ali has done... Hat trick! Oh my God, okay, number 3. I genuinely got that wrong. I'm so happy about that. Okay, Meg, so here we go. This is Meg. She's going to give us her 2 truths and a lie.
Okay, so can I give some context for mine?
Please, yes.
I was on the phone with my brother earlier and he was quite high while we were talking about this because I couldn't think of anything. So mine are very silly. Okay, so
let's see, which one is the lie?
So the first one is, I've had a bee in my mouth. Okay?
I've had a bee. She's had a bee in her mouth.
In my mouth, yeah.
The insect, not
the insect, not the letter.
Because she just had the letter B in her mouth right
Letter
there.
B, yeah. The second is, I unwittingly had a muffin stuck in my coat sleeve on an hour-long flight.
Unwillingly, did you
Unwittingly.
say? Unwittingly had a muffin stuck in her coat sleeve on an hour-long flight.
And the
happens
third,
to the best of us.
The third is I've had 2 beers in my mouth.
She's had 2 beers, like at one time.
2 bees.
Oh, 2 bees.
This is where my high
so
brother came
one
into
bee,
it.
a muffin stuck in her sleeve for an hour on a flight, or 2 bees. We're gonna think which one do we think is the lie. Raise your hand if you think she's definitely not had 1 bee in her mouth. Raise your hand. Okay, 2, 3. Raise your 2 bees or not 2 bees. Raise your hand if you think she's definitely lying about the muffin in her sleeve.
I think the brother did it. I think that's how he knows. I think he did it.
Okay, the brother maybe did it, and she was unaware. Okay, raise your hand if you think she's definitely not had 2 bees. How could you have 2 bees? Okay, majority says 2 bees. Is that the lie?
Yeah, it is.
Oh! I'm sorry, but she did not do a hat trick. But give her a round of applause anyways. Now, Meg, can I get you to just stay here for a second? Let's give a big round of applause for all 3 of them. Ali, Ahmed, sit down. We will get you to choose those at the end, okay? Because I want to just tell you guys before we move on, they're going to win these 2 fantastic hats. Now, here's the thing. Anil Kasemi, who's here with us tonight, is the founder of a company called Hatopia. Woo! If you listen to our podcast, which you can find anywhere podcasts are found, one of our episodes features Anil, and it's a fascinating story, really moving, amazing. He's from Afghanistan. He has made his way here. It's quite incredible. And one of the things he has done, I mean, his whole kind of life is about helping other people, creating access for other refugees and people like that living here. He's quite an amazing person. But he started this company that has recently won the eBay Business Award. Give him a round of applause for that. So He's generously sponsoring this segment that we're going to do not every show, but every couple of shows where we're going to have these beautiful hats, sometimes other objects. So I just want to tell you about Hatopia. So since launching Hatopia in 2023, so only a year ago, they've sold over 1,000 hats to 27 countries and maintain 100% positive feedback on eBay. Every day, Hatopia expands with new products. Driven with the desire to create opportunities and bring about positive change, leaving Afghanistan has not only fueled Anil's determination to continue as an entrepreneur, but they, as I said before, a recent eBay Business Award winner. And I really admire him for giving opportunities to creating opportunities. I don't know how he has the time because this is not his full-time job. He does other things as well. I really recommend checking out that episode. If you want to find out more about Hatopia, we're going to have links and things on the podcast. You can go to Hatopia, Hatopia.co.uk, or on Instagram, it's Hatopia_UK. So the business is doing a lot to help other people. It's an amazing thing. So let's give a huge round of applause for Anil Kasemi. Meg Hemmings is our next guest. Give her a big round of applause. At first, when they both came in the room, I couldn't tell who was the cave woman and who was the poet. I was trying to figure out who it was.
And who has had a bee in their mouth.
I mean,
My God.
honestly. Let me tell you a bit about Meg. Meg is a poet and baker, currently pottering around East London in lieu of her native Australia. She's had a memoir published by the SBS Australia. Her poetry was featured in the spring 2024 edition of literary journal
Meanjin.
Yes. This is my own writing here. And she bakes cookies of equality that is spoken of in hushed, ravenous whispers. Ooh. She's currently busy working on her first poetry collection and raising a 7-year-old sourdough starter named Jean. Please give a big round of applause to Meg. Meg, you can stand with that if you want, or you can sit. It's totally up to you. Meg's going to share some of her poetry with us.
This is called Kindred. 1. I linger at the bar, past sleeping hours to stay lit by your glow. Everyone thinks we're in love, and we are, just not in the way straight men want us to be. You tell me your history, a Sri Lankan fishing village and Canadian street corners. I tell you how my parents fell in love over crossword puzzles. Your marrow is on my fingertips, you linger in my ribcage. 2. You hold your hand out, and I meet your eyes for the first time before you say hey and life becomes technicolor. We're from the same town, same streets, same faces, same uniforms. We slip into habits, untapped comedy, painting portraits, nap time, orbiting. We live through a mutual crush. In a lifetime, we could have been lovers, but this is better because now I'll love you forever. 3. I haven't seen you in years when we meet for breakfast in a cafe in Notting Hill that is prettier than the food is good. We have known each other forever, but not like this. Loving you feels like a cold swim on a hot day. I will never leave this water. We leave every meeting with carefully thumbed books we lend each other in our bags. We say goodbye feeling fuller than when we said hello. Thank you. Okay, this is called This Is Not Before Sunrise. I am dressed in overground orange to meet you in the city, where we get drunk on gin and hurried lust. What do you think of me in my orange dress, vulnerable and aching for your hands to find my hips and pull them into you, like you miss them, except we haven't met before this night. You kiss me by monuments, a statue of a cat and a ruined church, but this is not before sunrise. You are not Ethan Hawke and I am not Julie Delpy. At a distance, we could be them. At a distance, we could be a lot of things. I will not write books about this. You will not read about me. We won't meet again. I will fade into your footnotes. You are a name on my list. I am just a number on yours. Thank you. So this is the poem that was just published by Meanjin in Australia. It's called Woman in Black Stockings. I sit in the library at the Barbican, a book of Bukowski's stories open at my fingertips, an Egon Schiele book closed at my elbow. I am like them, maker and subject, a woman who loves to be naked and admired in a dimly lit room in houses I won't enter more than once. You litter the streets with your presence and cigarettes, your eyes a little sadder than they were yesterday. I add your name to the list I keep on my phone of the men and women who have been inside me, most a tattooed tote bag carrying lads from East London. I am as predictable as the next girl who sips orange wine at poetry nights and wears dead people's clothes. I walk the market back to my shabby house share that I took in midsummer. Half a grapefruit and an apple with 2 bites taken out of it litter the ground. I want to bring the overripe flesh to my mouth and suck the juice from it. I am thirsty. I am wet. I want to drown in it, but I won't. Not this time. Thank you. So I recently took a trip to Biarritz in France with one of my best friends, and I wrote this while sitting on the sand. It's called Waking Up Late September. Horizontal on sand that isn't quite sand yet, but little rocks. We feel small. We are pebbles in a big Zen garden. I lie here reading a book I bought in a bookstore I always seem to go to with lovers I lose touch with. A Londoner's story about London, read by an Australian on a beach in Basque Country here for the weekend. Surrounding trees are ones I thought I made up in a past hypnosis, reminding me how serenity feels. Faded green and blurred like Monet painted them in his old age. San Pellegrino bottles next to us, sharing snippets we like, ones that make us feel seen, in these novels written by women who are the same as us. We are all the same. I have rocks inside me, and being by this bay is turning them into sand. An uneven burn starts to color my skin. I am too consumed by this day to notice the flame beginning to flicker. Thank you. Okay, this is my last one, and it's another one about friendship because I love my friends. It's called Never Tear Us Apart. Early morning hours, your call comes in. Can I come stay at yours? Stay at mine. Share my pillow. 4 a.m. waiting on the street corner for you to run towards me. We are all smiles. Let's not get murdered tonight. I welcome you into my chaos. Piles of half-read books, birthday cards filled with in-jokes, vintage leather and lace. I keep my room secret because it is my brain, and my brain is not a place I'm proud of. You settle in like you belong there. I see you without your makeup, a rarity. You sit in my old lover's faded band t-shirt, crunching crisps, making crumbs in defiance, stolen from my housemate who always eats my food. Fuck you, Sandra. We talk of brothers and cousins. We both have lost grandmothers named Winnie. We are 13, 14, 15. We are 30. In my bed, cuddling soft toys, whispering secrets, stories told between stifled giggles. Bare faces, bare legs, bare souls. Gossiping about the boys we have crushes on, thinking this was too small for us, realizing we'll never be too big to have our hearts stolen. Do you think he likes me? How could he not? We pour into each other, and I realize how much I needed not just a friend like you, but specifically you. There is only one you. Thank you.
Just take a seat for a second. One more time for Meg, everybody. Big round of applause. Well, thank you so much for that. I just wanted to ask you, back to our parish notices, how are you fostering community and connection in the coming weeks? Is there anything you're doing, events, goals that you have? I know you were at a football game last night because I was stalking you on Instagram.
I was at a football game, so I went to the football with my friend Tyrone because I just wanted the vibes and a hot dog.
The hot dog looks good. Check out the Instagram. It might still be live.
It was very big hot dog. But yeah. No, yeah, I don't follow football at all, but I went for the energy, and it was good energy. It was nice.
And are you doing anything in the coming week that's creating connection?
I mean, yeah, so me and my lovely friend Sasha is in the audience. We have a loose plan to make food, so we're both chefs, make food for each other and watch some movies that we liked when we were children.
Oh, tell us one of the movies.
So we were going to watch The Secret Garden and then also The Little Princess.
I love it.
Classics.
Amazing. One more time for Meg, everybody. Thank you. This is for you to keep. The answer to Stump the Room in the I paper was...
Drag.
Oh! Round of applause! Did you solve the puzzle? The answer to residue in 5 letters was dregs. D-R-E-G-S. Dregs. In each show, we like to hear how you are fostering connection and community. We call this a parish notice.
Hi, good evening. My name is Andre, and my parish notice is that I'm going to my cousin's 70th birthday down by Bexley Heath in southeast London on, well, tomorrow night.
Hi, I'm Daniel, and my parish notice is I'm a big theatre goer, and there's a really good new musical on the West End called Why Am I So Single, which is by the same people that created Six, that you might have seen, which was about Henry VIII's wives and focused on the story of the wives themselves. And Why Am I So Single is a new musical by them about 2 best friends. It's actually about the 2 writers and a conversation about why are they single, and then they break into song a lot. It's very funny, very touching, it's very for now, and I'm single myself, so it hit very hard.
Hi, my name is Sadaf. To connect to people, next week I'll be organizing a concert for great artists, and I believe share experiences for people, foster connections, and that's how we do it.
I'm Anthony. What I will do basically is I moved to a new place, so I'm gonna say hi to my neighbors and just give some homemade food and say, yeah, hey.
It's that time again. Victorian parlor games. All games, from the Roman gladiatorial battles to a quiet round of cards or charades, are imitations of real-life situations. The activity of playing games is the expression of an instinct. For play is far older than culture, older even than prehistory. So here's our offering to you, a way to connect with your friends and family and have a bit of fun. Today's game, Basketball Head. Ladies and gentlemen, gather around for a delightful test of skill and coordination, introducing the whimsical sport of Basketball Head, a game of dexterity, aim, and a sprinkle of good humor. This game is delightfully absurd, but it does require a few supplies. A simple Google search of Basketball Head game will result in a few options for the game and where to purchase the supplies needed. Usually, 2 people have the baskets attached to their heads, and the other 2 people have about 10 balls each. A fun way to play is divide yourself into 2 teams, set the timer for 1 minute, and see who can land the most balls in the basket. Of course, there are a variety of ways you can experiment with this, whether it be multiple team members trying their hand at scoring, or if you only have 2 people total, you could each wear a basket and try to shoot balls simultaneously. The point is to add challenges and embrace the chaotic hilarity. You can check out our Instagram to see how it went for us. You'll find us at The Big Smoke Variety. That's all for today's episode. You can find images of the objects Sarah Day was talking about on our Instagram page. And if you'd like to come to one of our live shows, information on how to book tickets is in the podcast description, our Instagram bio, or on our Eventbrite page. Thanks for listening. Well, so long until we meet again. I'm so glad that you were here, my friends. And the time may be fast, but good friendships will last. So long until we meet again. Good night, everybody.